The room was silent, but the tension crackled like electricity. Victoria's heart pounded as every eye in the house turned toward her. The producers had gotten the drama they wanted, but what about her? What was she supposed to do with this confession? Tae-jin stood there, his expression unreadable again, but his hands were clenched into fists. Did he regret saying it? Before she could react, the host clapped their hands. Well, that was unexpected, but that's what Love House is all about. Surprises. A few contestants chuckled nervously, while others exchanged whispers. Haneul's smirk was gone, replaced by something darker. Mina nudged Victoria with a grin. "Girl, you just won the season." Victoria forced a laugh, but inside, she was spiraling. The night ended with hushed conversations and stolen glances. She barely remembered walking back to her room, her mind racing with questions. Was this real? Was Tae-jin being honest? Or was this just another game for the cameras? She had no answers. But later that night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her phone buzzed. "Tae-jin, can we talk?" Her pulse jumped. She hesitated, then replied, "Where?" "Tae-jin, the rooftop." Quietly, she slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Mina, and tiptoed through the dark hallway. The mansion was eerily quiet at night, the only sound being the soft hum of the city beyond. When she reached the rooftop, Tae-jin was already there, leaning against the railing, the city lights reflecting in his dark eyes. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "You came." Victoria folded her arms. "Of course I came. You dropped a bomb in there." Tae-jin exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't plan to say it like that, but when I looked at you, I couldn't lie." She searched his face, looking for any sign that he was playing her. But all she saw was sincerity. She swallowed. "So, what now?" Tae-jin hesitated, then took a step closer. "I don't know. I just know I don't want this to be fake." Her breath hitched. It was crazy. It was reckless. They had only known each other for a short time. But when Tae-jin looked at her like that, like she was the only person in the world, it was hard to remember logic. She took a shaky breath. "Tae-jin, Bam! The rooftop door slammed open. They both turned to see Haneul standing there, his face twisted with anger. "I knew it," he spat. "You're really falling for her." Tae-jin's jaw tightened. "Stay out of this." Haneul scoffed. "You think you can just rewrite your story? That you can change who you are just because of her?" His gaze flicked to Victoria, filled with something bitter. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Victoria's stomach turned. "What are you talking about?" Haneul stepped closer, his voice low. "Tae-jin isn't who you think he is." Tae-jin's fists clenched. "That's enough." Haneul ignored him. "He's not just some guy who ran away from his rich family. He has a history, Victoria. A bad one." Victoria's breath caught. "What do you mean?" Tae-jin grabbed Haneul by the collar, his voice deadly. "I said, that's enough." For a second, the two men stared each other down, the air thick with tension. Then, just as suddenly, Tae-jin let go, pushing Haneul back. Without another word, he turned to Victoria. "I'll tell you everything," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "But not here." Victoria hesitated, then nodded. Haneul scoffed. "You're making a mistake." But she wasn't sure anymore. Maybe she already had. The next day, Victoria met Tae-jin outside the mansion, away from the cameras. He led her to a small cafe tucked away in a quiet street. They sat in the corner, the air between them heavy. Finally, Tae-jin spoke. Haneul wasn't wrong. Victoria's fingers tightened around her cup. "I wasn't always..." Like this, he admitted, looking down. Before this show, I was different. I was reckless, angry. I got into fights, got into trouble. My family wanted me to be perfect, but I kept disappointing them. Victoria's heart ached at the pain in his voice. What happened? Tae-jin's hands curled into fists. I hurt someone. Not physically, but emotionally. I was selfish. I played with someone's heart. I thought love was just a game. Victoria's stomach twisted. And now? He met her gaze, eyes burning with something raw. And now, I met you, and I don't want to be that person anymore. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Victoria let out a shaky breath. I don't know if I can trust you, Tae-jin. His face fell slightly, but he nodded. I understand. She swallowed hard. But I want to. Hope flickered in his eyes. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For now. But the drama was far from over, because as they left the cafe, a car was parked across the street. And inside, a man was watching them. A man with sharp eyes and a cruel smile. A man who had been waiting for Tae-jin to make a mistake. And now, he had. The man in the car watched them intently, his fingers drumming against the steering wheel. Tae-jin and Victoria walked side by side, unaware of the shadow lurking in their past. Are you sure you want to do this? Tae-jin asked, stealing a glance at Victoria. She nodded, her expression firm. I told you, I want to trust you, but I need the truth. Tae-jin exhaled. Then let's go. They walked further down the street until they reached a small, dimly lit park. It was quiet, save for the rustling of leaves and the distant sound of cars. Tae-jin hesitated, then spoke. His name was Jizu. Victoria stiffened. She was my first love, and I ruined her. His voice was raw, filled with regret. I was young, stupid. I thought love was just something to pass the time. But Jizu, she loved me, and I played with her feelings. Victoria swallowed. What happened? Tae-jin's jaw tightened. I led her on, made her think I felt the same. Then one day I just walked away. No explanation, no closure. Just gone. Victoria's heart ached at the pain in his voice. She tried to reach me. Called, texted, even showed up at my house. He let out a bitter laugh. But I ignored her. Thought I was doing her a favor. I thought she'd move on. He paused. She didn't. Victoria's breath hitched. What do you mean? Tae-jin looked away. She tried to end her life. Silence. The weight of his words crashed down on Victoria like a tidal wave. She survived, he continued, voice barely above a whisper. But she was never the same after that. Victoria stared at him, trying to process everything. I tried to apologize, but she didn't want to see me. I don't blame her. He clenched his fists. That's why I left everything behind. My family, my past. That's why I came on this stupid show, to distract myself, to pretend I wasn't that person anymore. A lump formed in Victoria's throat. And now? Tae-jin met her gaze, his eyes filled with something desperate. Now. I just want to be better. The words hung between them, heavy and fragile. Victoria wanted to hate him, wanted to walk away, but deep down, she knew what it was like to make mistakes, to hurt people, even without meaning to. And Tae-jin, he was trying. She sighed. I don't know if I can forgive you for that. His expression fell. But, she added, I'm willing to see if you really mean it. Hope flickered in his eyes, and just as he opened his mouth to respond, screech! A black car skidded to a stop in front of them. The door swung open, and before Tae-jin could react, two men grabbed him. Victoria gasped. Tae-jin! Tae-jin struggled, but the men were stronger. Then a third man stepped out of the car, the same man who had been watching them. He smirked. It's been a long time, Tae-jin. Tae-jin's body went rigid. Jizu's brother, he whispered. Victoria's blood ran cold. The man's smirk widened. You didn't think you could just run away, did you? Then, without warning, he punched Tae-jin. Victoria screamed as Tae-jin collapsed to the ground, blood dripping from his lip. The man grabbed him by the collar. Did you think I forgot what you did to my sister? His voice was deadly. You destroyed her. Now I'm going to destroy you. Victoria lunged forward. Stop! But one of the men shoved her back. Tae-jin coughed, wiping the blood from his mouth. I deserve this, he muttered. The man sneered. Damn right you do. Then he raised his fist again, but before he could strike, police sirens filled the air. The man cursed. Shush, lucky bastard. He shoved Tae-jin to the ground. This isn't over. Then he and his men jumped into the car and sped off. Victoria dropped to her knees beside Tae-jin. Are you okay? He groaned, wincing. I've been better. She helped him sit up, her hands shaking. Who was that? Tae-jin wiped his lip. Jizu's older brother, Kang-dae. Victoria's stomach twisted. He's dangerous. Tae-jin nodded. And he won't stop until he's made me pay. Victoria swallowed hard. She had thought coming on Love House would be just another reality show. But now, she was in too deep. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if she'd make it out. Tae-jin winced as Victoria pressed a tissue to his split lip. They were back at the Love House villa, sitting in a secluded corner of the garden. The other contestants were inside, completely unaware of what had just happened. Victoria's hands were shaking. He could have killed you. Tae-jin exhaled. Yeah, but he didn't. She shot him a glare. Don't act like this isn't serious. Tae-jin looked away. I knew this would happen eventually. Victoria's stomach twisted. You mean, you knew he was looking for you? Tae-jin nodded slowly. Jizu's family was rich, powerful. He hesitated. When she tried to take her life, her brother swore he'd make me pay. I left Korea before he could find me, changed my name, cut ties with everyone. Victoria's heart pounded. But he still found you. Tae-jin let out a bitter laugh. Guess I wasn't careful enough. She clenched her fists. And what now? You think he's just going to disappear? He was silent. Victoria swallowed hard. Tae-jin, you need to go to the police. He shook his head. It won't help. What do you mean it won't help? She snapped. That man attacked you. He threatened you. You think he's just going to stop? Tae-jin met her gaze, his eyes dark. You don't understand. Kang-dae isn't just some angry guy with a grudge. He has connections. Money. If I go to the police, they'll look the other way. Victoria's breath hitched. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. I should have known this was coming. She stared at him, her chest tightening. So what? You're just going to wait until he comes back? Tae-jin hesitated, then said, I'll figure something out. Victoria's pulse quickened. You mean, run again? Silence. She exhaled sharply. Unbelievable. Tae-jin frowned. Victoria, no. She cut him off. You think running away is the answer? That it'll just fix everything? Tae-jin's jaw clenched. It's the only thing I can do. Victoria stood up. Then you're a coward. He flinched. She took a shaky breath. I thought you wanted to be better. Tae-jin looked down. Victoria turned to leave, then stopped, because standing just a few feet away, watching them, was Kang-dae. Her blood ran cold. Tae-jin followed her gaze, and his entire body tensed. Kang-dae smirked. "Did you really think I'd leave that easily?" Victoria's breath caught in her throat. Tae-jin slowly stood up. "What do you want?" Kang-dae tilted his head. "Justice." Tae-jin clenched his fists. "You already got your revenge?" Kang-dae's smile disappeared. "You think a little punch makes up for what you did?" Tae-jin stiffened. Victoria took a step forward. "This isn't the place for this," she said, forcing her voice to stay calm. Kang-dae's gaze flickered to her. "And who are you? His new plaything?" Victoria's stomach churned. Tae-jin took a step in front of her. "Leave her out of this." Kang-dae chuckled. "Ah, so you do care." Tae-jin's fists tightened. "I mean it, Kang-dae. This is between us." Kang-dae's expression darkened. "Not anymore." Then he pulled out his phone and showed them the screen. Victoria's breath caught. It was a photo of her and Tae-jin from earlier that night. Together. Her stomach dropped. Kang-dae smirked. "You see, I did some digging. Turns out this whole love house thing, it's a great way to get attention." Tae-jin's face paled. "What did you do?" Kang-dae's grin widened. "I leaked your past." Victoria's pulse skyrocketed. "No," Tae-jin whispered. "Oh yes," Kang-dae said, smug. "By morning, everyone's going to know what kind of man you are. The press, the fans, the producers, they're going to eat you alive." Victoria's chest tightened. Kang-dae leaned in. "And the best part, you won't be able to run this time." Then, with one last smirk, he turned and walked away, leaving Tae-jin and Victoria frozen in place. Their lives were about to explode. Tae-jin felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. The scandal had exploded overnight. News outlets, social media, and even the Love House producers were buzzing with speculation. His past, the thing he had spent years trying to bury, was now out in the open. Victoria sat beside him in his room, scrolling through her phone. "It's bad," she admitted, looking up at him. "They're calling you a liar, a manipulator. Some are even saying you shouldn't have been cast on the show." Tae-jin exhaled shakily. "I should have seen this coming." She frowned. "You don't deserve this." He let out a dry laugh. "Maybe I do." Victoria grabbed his hand, forcing him to look at her. "No, you don't." His eyes softened. "Victoria, I mean it," she said firmly. "You've been punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. Yes, you made mistakes, but you didn't ruin Jisu's life. You didn't force her to..." She hesitated. What happened to her was tragic. But Kang-dae needs someone to blame, and unfortunately that person is you. Tae-jin swallowed hard. "But what do I do now?" Victoria's grip tightened. "You face it." He blinked. "You've spent years running," she continued. "But running didn't stop the past from catching up to you. If you want to move forward, you have to fight back. Not with violence, not with fear, but with the truth." Tae-jin hesitated, then nodded. The next morning, Tae-jin went live. Thousands of people tuned in. His name was already trending, and everyone wanted to hear what he had to say. He took a deep breath and faced the camera. "I know a lot has been said about me in the past 24 hours. I won't deny that I have a complicated history, but I won't let someone else define my story." He glanced at Victoria, who stood behind the camera, silently encouraging him. He continued, "I loved Jizu, and when she got hurt, I blamed myself every single day. But the truth is, I wasn't the reason she made the choices she did. And Kang-dae, if you're watching, I'm sorry for your pain. I really am. But this cycle of revenge has to stop." His voice steadied. "I'm not running anymore." The response was overwhelming. Some people still criticized him, but many more supported him. Other contestants from Love House spoke up, defending him. Even some of Jisu's old friends came forward, revealing things that showed Kang Dae's version of events wasn't the full truth. Within days, the scandal started losing traction. The media found a new story to chase. And just like that, the storm passed. A week later, Tae-jin and Victoria stood on the beach, watching the sunset. He turned to her. "I wouldn't have gotten through this without you." She smiled. "You would have figured it out." He smirked. "Eventually." She nudged him playfully. "So, what now?" Tae-jin exhaled, looking out at the waves. "For the first time in years, I don't know." Victoria tilted her head. "And does that scare you?" He thought about it. Then he smiled. "Number?" "It feels like a new beginning." She reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Tae-jin knew he was finally free. If you found this story interesting, please like, comment with your thoughts, share, and subscribe for more.